I would encourage any child to do what I did and pursue a life of, passionate creation, the way that, that I have right now. And I'm very fortunate to have it. Yo.
What's up, Lucas? How are you?
Hey, man. I'm good. Thank you. How are you, bro?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you doing this today.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. I'm Adam, and this is a podcast about you, your journey in music, and we'll talk about the split you have coming out here, pretty shortly. August, I believe, right? Mid-August.
Yeah, dude, like 2 weeks, I think. It's creeping up. So
it's so weird that like August is literally next month, like next week.
Dude, I know. So we're getting there though, nearly through another year, and then slowly closer towards the big void of death. Yes, come on, let's go.
Right on, man. Well, again, I appreciate you doing this. First off, talk to me about where were you born and raised?
So I'm from a country called Wales in the United Kingdom. It's the smallest country in the UK, and I feel like it's probably the least well known on the world stage as well. Like, I feel like, England, everybody knows England. You've got the Queen. Scotland, you've got haggis and kilts. Ireland, you've got leprechauns and potatoes, I guess. But Wales, where I'm from, is very much just the small little country. But yes, and I'm also from a very small town as well called Pontypridd. So so my whole life I've just been growing up in just a small town in a small country, really. So yeah.
Interesting. You're fairly close though to like, in London and everything, right? Or
yeah,
not too far.
The thing is, trying to tell anybody from, especially America,
we don't know anything over here.
No. I
mean, like, as far as like, geographically, I'm so bad with it.
Well, no, the point I was getting at is I'm an hour away from England. You know what I mean? So that is nothing really. When you think about Americans, it's like you guys, the country's so big that like an hour is nothing really. But obviously to me, like, because our country's so small, it's like half an hour is far away,
Sure.
But yeah, so yeah, we're not too far away at all. Like I currently live in Cardiff, which is the capital of Wales.
Okay.
And I'm only like 3 hours away from London even. So I'm not as far out in the sticks as it feels, I guess, if I compare it to a place like Texas, which is just
massive,
huge compared to the UK. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's very interesting because friends of mine are in the band The Struts, and they're drummers from Wales. And it was always blew my mind. I'm like, how are you from he's like, they're from Derby and he's from like a part of Wales. And he's like, dude, it's like 30 and 45-minute drive. Like, it wasn't very far.
Yeah. It's just like man, for sure. And I'm trying to think of a good example of like a state. I guess it's like, or maybe not actually, but you know how like Vegas is kind of near California or whatever, where it's
right.
It's
or
close
like
enough,
LA
but it's still different.
To maybe, San Diego. I don't know. That even seems too far. Like, it's
yeah,
crazy.
But yeah, I get what you mean though. Yeah.
Right on. Well, so did you grow up in like a rural area? Like, was there anything around?
Yeah, dude. I mean, I lived in a town, by no means did I grow up in like some sort of like desolate kind of farmland and such, I had like, yeah. But no, I had a local little town and stuff, but it's one of those things where it's just a street, and there's just shops and then, so it was super low key, growing up. And I think, to be honest, like talking to you the way that I am, talking like this because I've left Wales and I've seen how big the world is, But to a lot of people, I mean, Pontypridd is kind of big, really, even though it's now I've seen Australia and America and stuff. It just feels like,
you only know what you know, right? Yeah, exactly.
Sure. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. What about a musical household? Did you grow up in a musical family at all?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate that my parents are a massive music fans, and like I look back and there's photos of me as a kid wearing like a Prodigy t-shirt, and like
that's
all
right.
these kind of, and like, yeah, man. And like my parents went to the Reading Nirvana 92 famous performance and stuff, So my parents have always been into music, and I feel like I was always gonna get into music, but they were very chill as well. They weren't like, I gotta be honest, they never give me like lessons on an instrument or anything. It wasn't like I was like, born and then given a guitar straight away or anything. They let me find it myself, and when I was probably about 10 years of age, I got into American Idiot by Green Day. That was kind of the entrance for me. But I always look back at photos or whatever, and I feel like my parents are similar to how I am now, really, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's cool that you got into Green Day. I'm literally a decade older than you. So when I got into music,
so Dookie was the one.
That was the one. That's what's so bizarre. Like I'll talk to people that are, 10 years younger that are like, oh, I got into, American Idiot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was like me discovering Dookie. I was like, oh my God.
Because I looked it up, man. And like, as a side topic, like, isn't it crazy that they did Dookie and then a decade later did American Idiot? Like, those are two career defining records, and they're not at all similar, and it's like, and a decade is long for any band to be existing, let alone to be writing like proper magnum opus music, So
well, they've continued to put out, I mean, such great record. If you look at like, every album was like hit, because even between American Idiot and that album, they had Nimrod with Time of Your Life on it. They had Insomniac. All of that, like A Warning. Yeah, all that came out. And it's just crazy to see. That band's going to be like U2, where they're going to have a huge hit record. Like
they probably already are.
Every decade until like the end of time. That's cool. So you got an American Idiot. And real quick side note on the show your parents went to, they went to that Nirvana show that's like the live recording that you can get
on record.
Wow. That's insane. I have that record.
Yeah, so they were there. They were in the field. Yeah,
that's crazy. So cool. That is so cool. All right, so you get into Green Day. Were you playing guitar? Is that what got you into guitar and singing and everything, or prior?
No, so I, you know how it is. I find it's always a funny one when people say, "When did you start singing?" or whatever. I'm like, dude, everyone sings when they're a kid. You know what I mean? Like everyone. Well, like it's just like something the kids do. So for me, it was like I could always sing a bit.
Mm-hmm.
My first kind of introduction to music was actually like drumming. Like that was for me. That was like, because in year 7 we did. It was actually really cool, and I'll never forget the lesson. My teacher set up like a drum kit, and it was hi-hat, snare, floor tom, or like bass drum or whatever. And I was the only kid that could do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and actually have the kind of. And I remember thinking like, do it now. I gotta get into drumming because I'm the only kid in the class. Like I've never been particularly good at any. I'm not in a hard done by way, but by most stretches, I am just like a very average person. So for the first time in my life, it was like I can do something nobody else in my class can do. So I'm gonna try and pursue it. And then it was a case of nobody could sing either, and I was the guy who could sing a bit. So I just became the singer in the end, really. So you also continued playing drums. Is that something you carried with you, or no? No, ironically, drumming is the one thing that drums are the one instrument that I don't play anymore, just because it's so expensive and it's so loud, it's so time consuming, it's a very physical. I need to call it a sport, because it feels like
really
a sport,
is, yeah.
But in the meantime, I've taught myself how to play piano, how to play guitar. So I'm very much in touch with myself as a musician, even though I'm only a singer in Holding Absence.
Sure.
But I wish I was a drummer though, dude. Like the most fun instrument. Yeah.
No, that's cool. Yeah, like you can always get like, if you're the drummer, you can choose the band, right? Usually the drummer is the guy that everyone's looking for, like, and then he's got to like, okay, I have 10 bands I can join. Which one do I want to join?
And I think every band wishes they had a drummer, and every drummer could join any band. Every good drummer has like 10 bands they choose. Yeah.
I know, it's crazy. That's why my son's 6 and he has a ridiculous amount of energy. And when COVID happened, I'm like, I got to get him doing something. So we bought him an electric drum kit, so it wouldn't be like insanely loud. And and now he's doing lessons and stuff, so it's pretty crazy to
cool, man.
See him do it. I think he likes it. I mean, even if he doesn't, at least he's
doing he'll always remember it as well. I think that's a big thing, is when you're a kid, it's like you don't need to, I look back at things I grew up alongside and I didn't like them at the time, but now I understand them better, and I'm grateful that they were always in my life in some weird way, so maybe he'll not like it, and then 5 years later he'll be like, whoa, I can already play drums and I like music now. So
I want to play it. Right, exactly. I didn't want to like push him and be that parent, like, you're good at it. But I'm like, he's doing it. It's something to take his time up for 30 minutes a week, but we're going.
I think a big thing as well is like, I mean, I think back to all the things my parents, not that my parents made me do anything, but I look back at some things and like, I just hate a lot of things in life that I was maybe made to do as a kid.
Right.
Or, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I remember I don't really like swimming, right? You know, and I know it sounds really dumb, but it's like, because when I was a kid, my parents took me to swimming lessons because it's an important skill to learn. And I just didn't like it. And now I'll never like swimming. It's not their fault, you know, but like, so it is one of those things you've got to be careful with kids, not to like,
exactly. Like not to
make them actually accidentally hate the thing you're trying to get into.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Cool. So you, when you said you were the only guy that could sing or would sing, you start singing what, for a band? Did you have some friends that got together and you're like, we should start a band? Or like, how did that start?
Man. Yeah, it was like, because one thing I will always be grateful for is every year in school there was a talent show, and it was, you know, the thing is like, not many kids naturally want to make music, you know, especially not in front of a hall full of people. So it wasn't really hard to do those talent shows either. As long as you put your name forward, you'd probably get a slot, and it'd only be like 3 minutes and whatever. And you know, so I feel like every year I was just doing the talent shows just because like I just really wanted to music, I guess. So in year 7, I did Basket Case with and I was like, yeah, straight up, dude. And I was an 11-year-old kid with my, you know, my and obviously, you know, I listened back to that song and I'm like, I didn't know what a whore was.
I was going to say the lyrics
was, and yeah, dude, you know, yeah. But it was like I didn't have a microphone either. I was literally stood on a stage singing in front of my whole school without a microphone over a CD, the international.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like, I look back, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to do that. And then, yeah, when I was maybe like 14, 15, I tried to drum and do like an Enter Sandman cover or something, or, you know, like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was about 16, me and my best friend Scott, who plays guitar in Holding Absence, and we still make music together now, we kind of met like a group of other musicians from another school down the road. And we formed our first band when we were like 15, 16. So that was like my introduction to everything, you know, putting on shows, you know, and we managed to make a scene on like some industrial estate with like this really small venue. And every week, you know, kids would be selling it out. It was only 100 people, but it was like a real
100
thing,
kids,
you know,
every week.
Yeah, dude.
That's
good.
It
was insane. And I really view that as the foundation of my music career, is just the fact that, you know, me and a bunch of kids from a small town just wanted to make music, and we did everything we could to make music, you know.
Mm-hmm. And was that band Falling with Style? Was that the first band?
Yeah.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Job, man. Yeah. So we were a band for 5 years. We put out 3 EPs. We played Download Festival, which was
you did a lot of stuff. I mean, so that was your high school band that just kept going.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, dude. And then when we went to uni, you know, it's hard because when you're making music, you want everything to be romantic, everything to make sense. And we kept putting out EPs, and we kept selling out the average small venue in Cardiff every year, you know, like metronomic. And then there came a year where it's like, we got to do an album now. And we've not got any money. And it's just, are we ready to make this jump, you know? And I think the wheels fell off, sadly. And then I had a year out. I realized how lost I was without music, you know, but luckily that was the 3rd year in my degree. So I did actually focus on education for a year. And then I literally joined Holding Absence the year after that. So so it was I'm really fortunate that I've kind of been making stable music every year, bar one, for over a decade now, you know.
Yeah.
So, which is so sick. Yeah.
Did you go to school for music or no? Nothing really.
Yes, I did. So my education, my degree is in popular music, and I will be the first to admit, like, I don't think it's really relevant to many job, career kind of.
It's relevant to your current career.
I mean, it is. I know. True. Very good point. But I didn't need it to do what I'm doing now, you know? So
it probably didn't hurt. I'm sure you learned a lot.
For sure, man. And I will say, I kind of view it as more like it afforded me 3 years to not have to get a job and not have to let go of that dream, you know? Like, I remember I turned up to the first week of the course, and some of the, like, one of the questions was like, who here has ever played a show or a gig or whatever, you know? And at that point I had played Download with Falling with Style, and it was like about 10 kids were like, oh, you know, I've never played a gig in front of people. I was like, dude, I played with Iron Maiden, you know, like, so
yeah, you're probably blowing
was,
these kids' minds. They're like, oh my, like, why are you here?
but but yeah, so those 3 years though, you know, I kept doing what I was doing, and you are right. I was surrounded by the thing I loved, so that definitely helped me. But it is a funny one, because when people say, do you think it's necessary to get a degree, or do you think it's necessary to pursue further education or whatever, I don't really know the answer, even though I did it myself, because maybe I didn't need to do it, but I'll never know.
Right. I guess it all comes down to if you know exactly what you want to do, you know, when you hit 17, 18 years old, then maybe it's worth a shot.
I think that's
if not, you know, that's what's hard.
I think the hard thing is, though, is like what I do now. I would encourage any child to do what I did and pursue a life of, you know, passionate creation, the way that, you know, that I have right now. And I'm very fortunate to have it. But at the same time, you know, I always knew that what I wanted to do was unrealistic. And I was always aware that there was a big drop from, you know, I kind of knew, like, once I finish uni, I might just have to get a job, you know. And I'm fortunate that it worked out, but I think it's about having the humility to know, you know, it takes a lot of luck as well as a lot of hard work, you know.
Sure. And even
probably
then,
more luck.
Well, it's interesting because you had Play download and your band was selling out this venue, and you had EPs and everything released. It's like, I think some people just don't understand that even that, like, level of success in a band doesn't always equate to like enough money to live, right?
Dude, for sure. Yeah. And, like, you know, I look back and I'm grateful we're signed to a label. You know, I don't have to pay to record an album, which is insane. Right. But I look back and, like, every Christmas, me and the boys in that band, we would save our Christmas money and we would spend it on studio time, you know?
Right.
And it's just like, yeah, you know, I'm grateful that I was a kid who had parents who didn't allow me to do that, you know, but in some respects, it's like, even that is unrealistic, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's just so interesting. I interviewed a band. I'm not going to, you know, throw them under the bus, but they talk about it in the interview. But it was interesting because at the time, the current guitar player, it was working at GameStop, which is like a, you know, video game store. And the current singer of the band, who was singing prior to this, they had a video on MTV. I mean, they were doing tours. And I remember he came into the store, I guess, and the guy's like, "Oh my gosh, like, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like, I love your video." And he's like, "Thanks. Like, are you guys hiring?" Because, like, he was off tour.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, it's just so wild. And I've had other friends that worked at, like, Hot Topic that were touring bands. And, you know, it just takes so much time to even get to that next step of not working and just doing that full time.
And being 100% transparent, I have been a barman at the same rock club for nearly 10 years now. And the only reason I'm not, like, technically working there at the moment is because I can't, because I'm away so much, you know. But, like, I'm still in a position where, like, you know, if I wasn't away for 3 months at a time, you know, I definitely am still in a position where I serve our fans in, you know what I mean? Like, I frequently, you know, on a Friday night, I get stopped for photos like 3 or 4 times, you know, because
that's
it's like,
cool.
and which is super cool. But, like, it's crazy that is a reality, you know, like Holding Absence fans, people with you know, I remember one time I was pulling a pint at the back of this crowd of people, someone just lifted up their arm and pointed at their Holding Absence tattoo. And I was like, this is the coolest and saddest thing of all time. You know?
It's not, but it's reality, man. I mean, it is. Growing up, I grew up in San Diego, and do you know the band The Locust? They're
no, the name's cool though, so maybe
I don't know. They had some fame and did some things, and I remember the singer, like, worked at this bar we used to frequent. Like, he sometimes was like the door guy checking IDs, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's Justin Pearson from The Locust. Like, what is he doing checking IDs? But it's like his band was big and signed, and you know, had merch out, and you know, they're still like a legitimate band, but it's like still just crazy to think he's probably not working anymore, but at the time he was, and it was like, oh my gosh, like, he's here, like, so weird. But to real quick to just ask a couple follow-ups on Falling with Style, like, and then we'll get into obviously you joining Holding Absence and in that part of your story. Real quick, was that from, like, the first thing I think of when I read that was Buzz Lightyear in Toy Story.
No, yeah,
and I only think that, and I only say that because my kids are like obsessed. Like, I think I've seen that movie 6,000 times, and like that was the first thing I thought of, and it probably isn't, but that was what really triggered my head.
So I mean, basically, yeah, I think it is. Like, I joined the band after they'd named it, so it was like I didn't actually have any input on the name. But I gotta be honest, dude. I look back and I'm like, it's kind of cool that like that childhood band of mine is named after something so childish, because it really dates it in my head. I know that sounds really stupid, but it's like,
no,
when people find out I was in a band named after Toy Story,
I think it's rad.
It kind of sums up, yeah. It kind of sums up the fact I was just a kid, you know,
right.
and like, and also Toy Story is fucking sick. Like,
no, for sure.
I grew up watching Toy Story. Yeah. So. No,
but it's funny, yeah, because it's funny, because I was wondering, just because when Toy Story came out, you were like 1 year old. So,
yeah, like, dude, I know. Yeah. Well,
but it still holds up. I mean, my kid's 6 and he's still watching it. But yeah, that's funny. Okay, so you that you said that band kind of, you know, dissolved, and you were just doing a year of school, and then how do you land in Holding Absence? Because I know they did a little bit before you joined, right? They had a couple singles out or something like that.
Yeah, so Holding Absence was a band, before I joined, and they'd released 2 songs, and they obviously had a different vocalist and stuff. And yeah, basically they just stopped working with the vocalist that they were with. I think, you know, not to talk smack, but like, I think that they were a bit more ambitious than maybe he in the effort or the energy or whatever, and they were kind of
that happens, right? I mean, that's the hardest thing, is to get a group of people together that are actually willing to put everything into it, and just,
for sure,
you know,
and also, you know, for reference, the vocalist at the time, Zach, he then went on to form a band called Parting Gift, and they're an awesome band, you know, so he definitely had the chops. It wasn't like he was like, you know, it was just one of those things.
Yeah, it wasn't like they kicked him out. They're like, you're not good enough.
Then,
it was more like,
exactly. And then he went on and did loads of cool music anyway. So
yeah.
But yeah, so I joined them basically, and
how did you meet them? Did you know they were looking for a singer?
So this is kind of the crazy thing about Holding Absence and Falling with Style, you know, is like the first ever Holding Absence show was supporting Falling with Style, like, so
really?
So I, you know, yeah, and then obviously now, I don't know if you would know this, but literally 3 of the members of Holding Absence now were in Falling with Style. It's pretty much become my old band in a weird way. But the reason that band kind of formed, I think, or, you know, or really at the inception, was our drummer now, Ashley, who's like a proper incredible drummer. He filled in for Falling with Style for 1 tour, and everyone was just like, who the hell is this guy? You know, everyone in the Cardiff scene was like, whoa. And yeah, they got him in, and I lived with Faisal, the guitarist, who's now in Loathe. And I'd known James, the bassist at the time, who's now in James and the Cold Gun. I'd known him for 10 years. So I don't like to use the word incestuous, because it sounds like a negative word, but when you're from a town and a scene as small as I am, and as small as Cardiff is, you know, it's like everyone knows everyone. Like I said, I've got a matching tattoo with like 2 of those guys. You know, we lived in the same house and stuff, and it's just like, it just kind of naturally kind of became that thing. So, so yeah, it was just one of those things where, like, I guess, I don't know what the expression is, you know, that
like it just kind of made sense. Like, oh, well, you know,
well, he's not in a band anymore, and we need a singer. And then when Faisal left, we needed a songwriter, and Scott was a great songwriter, so Scott come in. And then James left, and, you know, and it's tough, because I look back and it's like, it is weird having had so many lineup changes. That's one thing that kind of bums me a little bit about our band, is that I think people will probably look at, you know, on paper, if you look at the facts, that there's more ex-members than there are current members, and no members of the original lineup are members of this lineup, you know. But honestly, you know, we've always been a passionate band, and I think when Faisal and James both left in their own time and for their own reasons, it was passion driven, you know, and I think in a setting like ours, where, you know, we're doing things that cost sacrifice but are worth pursuing. And you know, I think I'm at peace with why those guys left, because they followed their hearts, you know, and that's literally the goal of this band, is to just to follow your heart. And then yeah, like I said, I've been making music with the replacement members for nearly a decade, so it all just feels quite natural to me, even though on paper it might not be.
But yeah, in the same regard though, it's like you joined the band after they had two songs out, right? And
yeah.
I mean, it's like Trey Cool wasn't the original drummer of Green Day.
Of course.
I mean, they put a record out without him. Like the first
Bruce
album.
Dickinson wasn't the original vocalist of Iron Maiden. You know?
Right, exactly.
Like, it doesn't really matter too much.
But when you hear Iron Maiden, you think of, Bruce Dickinson.
Bruce.
Well, it's exactly like Misfits. You know, they didn't have Glenn Danzig for a number of years, but they were still the Misfits. And it's like, well, that, you know, it's just the whole thing. Yeah, I guess when it comes down to original members, it really depends. If it was they were a band, had 6 albums out, and, you know, were signed to whatever, Atlantic, and then you came in, maybe then it wouldn't be all the original. I don't know. But anyway.
It's a weird conversation, though.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter. But so, okay, so you joined the band, and you guys, when does it, like, the turning point happen? Like, okay, now you're in the band. They had a couple songs out, but when do you start? Do you have to build everything back up, or do you have the Falling with Style fans that are kind of following along?
That was an interesting point, because yeah, like I feel like kind of brought more Falling with Style fans to Holding Absence than they maybe already had. You know, they were such a small band, so but even then, it's not like it was an exodus of hundreds of fans. I think it was more like kind of hype within the scene, you know. It was like people knew what I could do. People knew what Holding Absence were currently doing. So there was that excitement level. But we wrote and released one song called Permanent, and we just put it out there. And we got a message from SharpTone basically saying, like, we love what you're doing. Keep up the good work. And yeah, it was literally from the first song that those guys reached out. So it really happened really quick. And then we put out a second song called Dream of Me, which was kind of the yin to the yang, you know, like Permanent was more of like an atmospheric metalcore song. And then Dream of Me was more of like a shoegazy alt rock song, I guess. And I think they just kind of realized we'd set out the parameters of what our band could be. And they signed us straight away, dude, 2 songs. So it turned on a dime really quickly with Holding Absence.
That must have been really exciting, though. I mean, to have a label reaching out right away and being like, I mean, what was that like?
It was insane. It was, I look back and it definitely put a lot of pressure on us because, you know, like I said, I've been doing this a long time, and I, you know, I put out like 20 songs with Falling with Style, and then I put out one song with Holding Absence, and it happened, and it was like,
right.
Oh, okay, you know, so yeah, there was a lot of pressure, and I think that's kind of what led to our old guitarist leaving. Actually, is it was just a lot of pressure at the time. But we're still here and we're still doing it, you know. And like I said, Faisal, the old guitarist, is in Loathe now, and you know, everybody's still making music. So we got there in the end, you know. Right.
And then I did read a couple interviews with you that you know, that happened. He left the band kind of in the middle of the recording process, right, on that second record.
Dude, it was sticky, man. And it was like, you know, no shade, because, like, you know, it's the truth, and he'd agree. But like, it was very much like he was the songwriter. Like, it was like nobody else in the band really much of the writing as he did. So
as far as music goes,
as far as music goes, I've always written my own lyrics and melodies and stuff. But it was kind of like when he left.
Double check.
Yeah. But when he left, it was like, how do we write a song? You know, like, where do we even begin? And we'd also recorded 6 of these songs, you know. It wasn't like we were halfway through writing it. Like, we'd literally been to a studio, tracked 6 songs, and then he left. So it was like, we're really in a tough space. But we ended up writing Like a Shadow and Wilt, which in my opinion are like the 2 best songs on that debut album without him. And I think that kind of confidence inspired us to keep doing what we were doing, really. So
And you put that record out in what, 2019 ish?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then that record comes out, you're able to tour it and give it a proper release, I would imagine. And then when does the pandemic hit, and did you have the next record out or not? It wasn't out because it didn't come out till 2021. But
yeah, you're right. So that was, dude, you know, like, I look at this band and like, I don't want to act like hard done by, but like, God, there was always something. There was something after something. And when we dropped that record, we did a headline run and we did some tours around Europe, and it went really well. And we were supposed to go to America for the first time in 2019.
Wow.
And our visas got declined. So dude. So we went from, starting this band and having a guitarist leave halfway through the album and then finishing the album somehow, trying to get a good touring cycle done with that record, and then getting turned down from doing the biggest thing we'd ever been offered because of our visas.
What was there just some weird, like, I don't even understand how that would even just
same, but I think honestly it was because it was like Trump o'clock, it was like fucking the less people.
Gotcha.
I think it was like there was like a quota of declination from what we can gather, and I think we were a bit of an easier target than maybe some bands. And I'll never know actually what actually happened, obviously, but that's all we can assume, I guess. But basically the point I'm getting at is that happened. And then what? That was September 2019. We did a tour with Sleeping with Sirens, which was sick, in Europe. And then, it was just like, so it was thing after thing. So I kind of view this as actually the first period in our career where we haven't had something kind of cataclysmic go wrong,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man. So
did you write the Greatest Mistake of My Life during the pandemic, or was that an album that you had together prior?
And this is kind of why COVID felt even more annoying for us. Like, God, sometimes when I sit and talk about it, I'm like, oh my God, how am I still here? How am I still doing this?
Right.
But we because of the pandemic, because of the visa thing, we were like, dude, screw it. Like, let's just, the next 3 months of our lives have been kind of taken away from us. Let's just start working on the next album and let's just move on, basically. So we wrote The Greatest Mistake and we went into the studio in February 2020. And then we left the studio, and then 2 days later was lockdown. So it was like, dude, I kid you not, man. So yeah, it was just like thing after thing, Yeah, I mean, that album was supposed to come out in 2020. And because of COVID, we pushed it back 6 months. And it was just crazy. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So you had the record, it was done, it sounds like, and you're going to release it, start the next album cycle. And now you're sitting on your hands.
Well, we just come out of the studio when COVID kind of happened.
Okay.
So, I mean, I remember being in the studio and watching the TV and everybody was like, this is actually happening, like, because we'd been locked away for 6 weeks. So we were kind of like, is this a joke? Like, I hadn't seen any, we weren't even going to supermarkets or anything. So we didn't really understand what was going on. But yeah, so, and then big COVID, same as everyone else. Though,
Sure. And then you have the split coming out, and tell me about that with Alpha Wolf, and how did that come about? And when did these songs get recorded? And I want to hear that story.
So basically Alpha Wolf both had albums kind of come out during the pandemic, and I think basically we both felt like we deserved to tour those albums more than we did. But you know how it is, man, digital age, you've got to put music out, and we've always put music out frequently anyway. So I guess it was a case of both of us wanting to put songs out and not just move on from our last records. We're on the same label, and split EPs are cool, so it was quite a natural thing, really.
Yeah, split EPs are cool. I was gonna say I haven't seen one in a while. Like a split.
Dude, we did one with Loathe, ironically, back in 2018. So we've actually done a split before. But it's a really fun idea. I wish more bands did it, bro. Like, it's such a cool thing,
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like a thing that has been lost, and that's rad that you're carrying on with it.
Yeah, dude, and like I said, I keep telling bands, like, do a split, man. Like, you literally get the best of both worlds. You get to introduce yourself to a whole new following. You get to put out music without having to release an album, which is like kind of, bands are scared of albums right now because of the whole, Spotify algorithm and stuff, so it ticks every box, and I mean, the split that we did with Lowe's back in 2018, like, I've seen those vinyls go for like hundreds, so it is an iconic thing already 4 years later, and I can't wait for this this is split to kind of be iconic in 10 years time as well, you know? So
yeah, very cool. And you guys got your visas approved. I saw that you're coming to,
yes. Yeah.
you're coming to the United States, man.
Yeah, dude. Well, we actually came across in April.
Oh, you did? Because you're coming back in August, right?
Yes. Yeah. We've Silverstein and Amity. So yeah, man. So we've already we've done it, and we've cut our teeth on it, and we've learned like it is a whole different beast. But I can't wait to come back and actually do like bigger venues and play with bands I grew up listening to and stuff. So
that's cool, man. I recently moved to Nashville, and you guys are playing here.
Cool. Yeah, we
on
are.
the 21st.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna definitely have to come out and check you out. You're playing the Brooklyn Bowl, which is such a rad venue, and it's next to the baseball. We have like a minor league baseball team, and it's like connected to the stadium. It's really pretty rad.
Nice, dude. That's one of the cooler things is like going to new places and just seeing crazy things. You know, like I had no idea Denver was just like on a mountain or whatever. Like, do you know what I mean? Like right, stuff you just don't know until you get there and see. You know. So.
Sure. Very cool. Well, I appreciate your time today. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for chatting.
Been my pleasure, dude. Thank you very much for having me. And,
I do have one more question, actually, too, because I just noticed that is Mike from Being as an Ocean still, is he touring with you guys?
So he played guitar for us on one tour.
Oh, okay.
And he's just like the boy. But he also used to manage our old band when we were kids. So like we've known Mike. We've known Mike for so long, and I love that dude. So
I interviewed him a while back. I mean, it had to be in the beginning of COVID when he put out Heart of Gold, when he was doing, I think he's still doing that project.
He is. Yeah. And I love that project. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was crazy because he's from where you grew up, right? Area.
I mean, this is what I mean is like maybe 3 or 4 hours away, but in America terms, that's like next door to each other, you know? So.
Yeah. Okay. Because I remember he was in LA or living in LA, and his girlfriend, I'm from San Diego, and his girlfriend lived in San Diego. So he would spend like all this time here. And it was just so crazy.
I think he's moved there now, dude. Yeah.
He was moving to San Diego. I'm like, what? Like, this is so random. But yeah, anyway, that's cool. So he just did one tour with you guys. He's not like a touring guitarist.
Nah, I'd love for him to come and do it as much as possible, but it was kind of like the first back really after COVID. It was like kind of in that small pocket where everything opened up, and it just worked out that he was free, and you know, it's all, the more the merrier really when it comes to having a great backing vocal. Like the best, you know, a backing vocalist better than the lead singer is always something that is,
I don't know about, but that's so super cool, man. So my last question, I just wanted to ask you about that real quick, but if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
My advice is always just everything we do in life, let alone music, is just a combination of luck and hard work, you know. And I always say to people, you know, you can get all the luck and not put in any of the hard work, or you can do all the hard work and not get any luck. But the only one you can control is the hard work. So why would you hope for luck when you can assure hard work, you know? And I guess a marriage of the two is good. You've just got to shoot your shots and buy your lottery tickets and just work your ass off and cross your fucking fingers, I guess.